All right, welcome everybody. We're gonna get started here. To be totally honest, I've been a little bit under the weather the last few days since the Euro Club Cup ended, so I didn't really prepare a lesson for today. So we're just gonna go over one of my games that I played there, which I think was a very interesting game. Had some interesting moments and a lot of mistakes, and hopefully you guys will play better. So let's get started. This is a game I played with White against Ivanisevic. Started off as Slav here. All right, who knows what the main moves are in this position? Anybody know what Black normally does here? Yeah, so there's a few moves here. There's, as people are pointing out, there's DC4, H6, and Knight BD7. So while I was preparing for Ivanisevic, I saw he was playing a lot of Botvinnik, and I had prepared some fun stuff there. But he had also tried some Cambridge Springs, and after E3, he was playing this line with H6, Bishop H4, G5, Knight H5, which I had done a bit of work for and didn't think was wildly great for Black. And he wasn't really playing Queen A5, which is the main Cambridge Springs like I recommend in my chessable. So anyhow, in this game, he played the move H6, which is a fine move, but one that he basically never played before and one that I hadn't checked at all before the game. All right, we're now talking strictly about practicality, but under these circumstances, knowing that his main lines were Botvinnik and that after in the Cambridge Springs with Knight BD7, after E3, he's always playing H6, G5, Bishop H3. We have not reviewed Bishop H4 or Bishop takes F6 for this game, but which move are we going to play and why? This is about practicality. Yeah, so a few people are giving options. Anybody want to explain why they would choose the move they would? Okay, Rio, you want to talk? Let me see, find you. All right, there you are.
I would play Bishop 6 because Bishop H4 gives him the opportunity to play G5 and Knight H5, which is what he wanted, or go back to his Botvinnik with D takes C4. While Bishop 6 would take him to like a completely new kind of position.
Do you think Bishop takes F6 leads to a dangerous position for Black?
Not really, but it takes him out of his comfort zone.
So if you're talking, okay, so if we're talking about comfort zone, essentially here, what you're saying is we can trade this bishop for the knight. And according to you, something like this with Bishop H4, where his main thing is to do this, he's going to trade this bishop for the knight anyway. He's going to burn some time doing it. He's going to compromise his king side. Why would we rather take the knight voluntarily?
He could also go to the chess post back to Botvinnik, I think.
But keep in mind, for what it's worth here, if he wanted the Botvinnik, he would have just taken on C4 here. He would not have started with H6. There's absolutely no reason. And so yeah, I think in practice, it's a lot better to play Bishop H4 here because basically after Bishop takes F6, Queen takes F6, there's a real limit to how much better White can ever be in a position like this one. And I don't really think it's much. I think even if you came to this position with Black knowing absolutely nothing, I find it very unlikely you can ever find yourself in a really questionable position. And so, sure, if this is what you prepared and this is what you're ready for, fine. But if you're coming in blank, you have to realize that Bishop takes F6 is a pretty tame option. Now, if you're playing somewhere you're worried, like, wait, I haven't checked this at all. Bishop H4, it's going to get to this Moscow variation like so, G5, and well, White's a pawn down and this bishop on F1 is restricted. And of course, White has plenty of compensation. You can open both sides of the board. He has A4, B3, H4 breaks very easily. There's a lot of sharp lines here, and you can just end up a pawn down if you're not careful. If you're playing someone where you believe, wait a minute, this guy really is just playing the Moscow variation, and I haven't prepared this Moscow gambit, maybe Bishop H4 being safe and conservative would be the better way to go. In this particular game, when I was looking at what I was seeing, I was like, look, if this guy wanted to play the Botvinnik, he would have just taken on C4. So I chose to play Bishop H4, and I hadn't reviewed this in like 8 years. So if he had taken on C4 and just knew all of his stuff, it's very likely I would have gotten into a lot of trouble. But the way I'd evaluated it was this guy is playing a fair amount of semi-Slavs. He's never playing H6. He's always playing into Knight BD7 or D takes C4. If he's randomly prepared the Moscow for this specific game against me, where I've mostly been playing E4 with White on move 1 anyway, if he's randomly prepared the Moscow, I'm the first guy he's played it against. I'm just going to call that bad luck. I mean, the Moscow gambit is not something you can fake. After D takes C4, E4, G5, in this position, White has E5, H4, Bishop E2, Knight E5, Queen C2. He has like 6 different decent moves. And then after that, he has another like 6 different decent moves. Oh, sorry, I have to let people into the meeting. Hang on. Oh, that's why. Okay. Admit. Yeah, okay, everyone's in now. But white has like 6 different ways you can play in this position, maybe more, and all of which are very dangerous and require a huge amount of preparation and knowledge. And I just didn't believe that my opponent would have that. And so at some point, I basically just bluffed him and said, look, I don't believe you know your stuff here. And I was right. I mean, there's no, like after d takes c4, the Moscow is not a variation that you just play. It's a variation that if you're playing, you're going to be playing it a lot. It's going to take many, many, many hours of work. This is not something you can just prepare for one game. So yeah, indeed, the game transposed. After knight bd7, he went to his normal stuff like this. So I continued along with my prepared line, which was queen c2 and bishop g7, and I castled long. So this position, I believe, is actually pleasantly better for white. And it's funny because in my chessable course, on the Semislav, which you all should go by right now, of course. I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, I gave the move knight bd7 here, and after e3, I gave queen a5. But if white were to take on d5 and play like this, I had actually given something kind of similar, and I believe that here black is absolutely fine. So why is this position okay for black with the position that we got in the game with the pawns on c4 and e6 remaining? Still better for white. Let's see if anybody can figure that out. Ryan, what happens if e4 instead of e3? Where e4? Here, like this position? Or you mean this position like now? Yeah, this is nothing special. After takes, this check is incredibly annoying, I think. And you'll have to retreat in a way that you won't enjoy. But no, what we're talking about is this position. Like, say we get what we got here. Why is it that a position like this one, let's say queen c2, take, bishop g7, why would it be that, for example, if we were to play c takes d5, e takes d5 here, my contention is black is absolutely fine, while if we castle long, I think white's better. There's a very important reason. e4 doesn't give an isolated d pawn. I don't think that's really important. I mean, here, this bishop on g7, if it gets opened up, is going to be the boss of the board. Now, I don't believe it will get opened up. I think that white can keep it under control. But yeah, so Eric Fang, you want to share with us the point? Seems like you had a decent idea. Okay, I will unmute you. Hang
on. If c takes d5, e takes d5, like, and then like queenside castles, like usually in the Slav, the bishop cannot get out. So then now after e takes d5, and then like let's say like knight b6 or something, the bishop can come out because like e takes d5 opens up the bishop.
Yeah, so the biggest thing is this bishop can come out, and not only can it come out, but it also means that black will be able to castle queenside. And essentially what's going on here is black has a somewhat loosened position thanks to h6 and g5, but he has a bishop pair. Now that bishop pair is not active. It's not doing anything wildly useful just yet. What black wants to do is keep this game as balanced and boring as possible. And then if he can do that in the long run, the bishop should count. So here black is ready to play something like bishop e6, queen e7, and castle long. And when he does that, the kings are on the same side, so attacking potential should be reduced pretty significantly. And eventually you can imagine him playing h5, h4, and trying to open some lines. Aryan Gupta, would c5 be a possibility? It's hard to imagine because when you play c5, the d5 pawn is weak and d takes c5 is coming. But if you compare that to what would happen here, so like let's say after castles, black is not going to be able to play like, so he played queen e7 in the game, which is best. But like if he tried to play the same thing with like knight b6 here, this position is just going to be bad for him because this bishop doesn't have a place to get out of the way and then get himself castled. So for example, I think I'd actually prepared this when I gave the move knight e5 in my analysis. When if black takes this one and takes c4, he's just going to get checkmated. But the problem is like I'm ready to plant f4 next, and this, like if we had this exact same position with like cd and ed included, even if this knight wasn't hanging, you just go bishop e6 and castle and you're good to go. But here, when you play bishop d7, that's an incredibly sad move. If I play like f4, you're not going to castle. I'm going to play c5. And now this knight is going to get booted back to a8. And we're going to see how much black is going to enjoy that. So basically, I think that the absence of c takes d5 and e takes d5 tilts the balance pretty heavily in white's favor. So after king b1, black castled, and I played bishop e2. This was still preparation. And in the game, Ivanisevic played b5, which was a bit rash. But let's imagine he had been more sedate and played the move rook d8, which is the only move that had been played here so far in human practice. So here, white, it feels like white should be better, but it's not that easy. And I think he has an important move. What should he play? Yeah, guys, this goes in for another 45 minutes if you just got here. We're looking at one of my games from Euro Club Cup. It was a very bad game, but it was at least interesting in some spots. I'm in Central Time, so I understood what you meant. But we made a move for white here and a reason behind it. A lot of people are giving e4. So basically here, the big problem that black is facing is that this bishop is passive, and that's the reason that white's position is playable. If you think about, like, how many times can you ever imagine white playing in the Grunfeld or the Dragon, leaving black with an unopposed dark squared bishop and getting a reasonable position? It's probably not very many times. So essentially here, as soon as you touch this e-pawn, this bishop has potential to wake up, and that can be a very, very scary thing. So for example, say we go e4, d takes c4, and black just starts throwing b5 and then c5, and even if it costs him a pawn. And this, as soon as this bishop wakes up to the queen side, this is bad news. You're never going to get mated with black with a bishop on g7 like that, and you really don't want this bishop to wake up. This pawn is quite nice on e3. All right. So Rio, you have a move you want to share with us? All right, calling you.
Okay, so I want to play knight h2 because I want knight g4 is coming, attacking the h6 pawn. So he can have either f5 or knight f6. Okay, like if f5 we have g4 and that's here, so we're weaken the king. So I guess he has to play knight f6. And now he blocked the bishop, and the knight's not in that great spot, and here we can play f4. He also stopped that.
I actually think that it's better after f5. G4 is decent, but I actually think it's better to play f4 anyway. There's a line here I remember preparing. It was g4. I think I can just take this one, and this gets very dangerous for black very fast. I prepared some line like this, I think, and rookish. Long story short, black gets mated was essentially the gist of my analysis. But yeah, here after knight h2, black has a very difficult position. He probably should play this one, but still f4 comes. And we're potentially ready for something like fg5, hg5, and knight g4 and rook df1. It feels reasonably likely that black's going to get himself mated here. So anyhow, though, Ivanisevic changed the character of the game with b5, offering a pawn. And here, I think I really made the wrong decision. The computer is pretty agnostic and was saying that my move was not so bad, actually, but in practice, I think that there's a much better decision. Sorry for the background noise. We got lovely doggy at my manager's house. He's amazing, but he makes a lot of noise. So let's we need to hang on, this is getting loud. Can we get Thor outside? All right. No, yeah, so we're gonna need to do something about this pawn on c4. Okay, sorry guys. All right, we need to do something about this pawn on c4. What are we gonna do about it, and why? All right, that should be fine. Lovely doggy, but he makes a lot of noise. Now he's upstairs. So I think it's pretty clear we have to touch our c-pawn here. The question, but we have three options we can choose between. And I think I chose the wrong one. Yeah, so Lyndon has a good point. So yeah, in the event of c5, black can strike back with e5. And so he really wants to wake up this bishop. And while it's not like totally fearsome just yet, I think this e5 move is something we're really not happy about having allowed. It means, for example, this knight can't move very easily without d4 falling. And if this knight can't move, we're not worried about knight g4 coming. We're not worried about f4 coming. Yeah, so basically here the move e5 is very nice. And if black were to ever play e5 without white playing c5 first, then c takes d5 will come. So actually this pawn on c4 is pretty good prophylaxis against the e5 break. With black playing b5, he's trying to compel you to play c5. And I think after c5, e5, black should have good counterplay. So the real question is, which one of these pawns do we want to take and why? Let's see if anyone else has a move here. Yeah, so. All right, Roger, you want to share with us? Or Austin or somebody? Anybody want to share? Okay, let me unmute. Roger, I'll unmute you. This should work. All right.
So first of all, I was thinking maybe if b5, then black would have this c5 move. I was thinking about this, and I just noticed that the bishop gets a lot more scope after either black takes or white takes on c5. But if you take on d5, then pretty much black takes with the e-pawn, and now it just looks like it's very hard for the bishop to open up.
Yeah, so here I think this is quite reasonable for white. So essentially, let's say we start with bishop d3. I think the real reason is, yeah, this bishop is going to have a very hard time waking up, because the only way I can imagine you playing c5 without dropping like both b5 and d5 is to play b4 at some point. Whenever you do, white goes knight a4 and then goes rook c1, you are not going to get c5 in here. And here white doesn't even need to give mate, which is good because I don't think you're going to. But like, let's say we go rook c1 and target this pawn. Then we go bishop f5 and harass this knight. If we might just straight up take it if black allows it, and we go knight c5 and knight e5. And all of our pieces are going to be really good, and we can just win this game on the queen side. It's not like black's ever going to wake up his pieces particularly effectively. So I really like this option. So when I took on b5 here, I was sort of expecting black to take back, which was just incredibly stupid of me because it's not going to happen. And my thought was after bishop takes b5 in here, there's a very nice, nasty move for white that basically just wins the game immediately. Anybody want to give it a shot? So Lyndon, that's a decent move, but yeah, Aryan, I like your move better. Aryan, what do you want? Yeah, Zoe as well. Yeah, everyone's getting this. I think bishop takes d7 is good. Now, probably knight takes g5 is the most direct, but just picking strictly strategic chess, I think after knight a4, black can resign. We stick this knight on c5. I think both of white's knights are better than both of black's bishops. He has absolutely no counterplay whatsoever on the open c file. This just looks absolutely resignable to me. So this means that if we had taken on d5, black doesn't really have this option. Again, basically I'm going to pre-move takes and then knight a4 and stick this knight on c5. And white looks essentially winning. So I should have realized that that being the case, black's going to play something different. Now, he could have played c5 here, which was a very sensible move. And I think would have, I think the computer said knight h2 and white's still better, but it strikes me as very dangerous. Instead, he played bishop b7, which also wasn't easy. And here, it's hard to really find a satisfactory move. The guy is just going to throw rook fc8, rook ab8. At some point, he'll play cb5 or c5. And I mean, the computer likes white, but it's still a very difficult position. So I want to move on a bit. Probably the best move, taking was fine, but probably the best move here was rook c1. I was worried about c5, so I took. But here I played bishop b5, which was not brilliant. We got this position. And then here, I played rook c1 to contest the file. And then at this point, I think I made a serious mistake. So Austin is saying his knight is shoot at g4 too slow now. I'm not sure too slow is the right thing. I think at this point, we just don't want to give mate anymore. Our plan is not to go crush the king side. Our plan is to say, hey, I want a pawn. Let me shut down all of this counterplay, like get my pieces on the open c file, start trading stuff, and keep black's pieces quiet. I mean, we take some pieces off the board and white just wins an endgame here very easily. So I think the goal should be solidity here first. And here I made a serious mistake, I think. I had the right idea in mind, but I chose the wrong square. So let's see if you guys can figure out what white should do and why. Just a second, I just blow my nose, I'll be right back. All right, sorry guys. Okay, so a lot of people are giving me a3, knight a2, knight b4. I don't like that. I think a3 is just begging for a sacrifice in your face. So black is going to play knight b6 and knight c4, and then some kind of rook b8, rook b3. I think giving him the b3 square is a real problem. And furthermore, bishop f8 can come for a sacrifice, so this is really asking for trouble. So Aradia played the same mistake that I did. You want to share with us your thought process, and then we'll see why it's the second best move? All right, so Aradia, let me call on you. Okay, so.
Yeah, I was thinking we could play like queen d3. So like if he plays like at any point, if he tries to play rook b8, you can play like knight b5. And if he tries to play a3, then like b3, and like we try to hold like the queen side and try to like trade the pieces.
Okay, so imagine
Mainly the rooks.
Imagine you got to play another move here. What would your next move be?
Probably knight. Maybe yeah, wait. Maybe a knight b5, but I think also knight d1 might be okay, but that seems a little passive.
I think we have a better plan for our next move. Anybody? Yeah, Ashish, you want to share with us? I can ask you.
Oh, I said like rook h2 and rook ch1 to get counterplay.
So your goal is to go give mate with rook h1.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're not trying to give mate here. Your whole goal should be to just keep this under. Like if you can keep this position under control and just start trading pieces, you should be in very good shape. Yeah, Austin, I like that move. You want to share with us? Yeah, Lyndon as well. Okay, yeah, everyone's getting this now. Yeah, I really think the white's plan should be to play rook c2 and rook hc1. If we can do this, we can overprotect the b2 pawn, which is our main weakness around our king, and then fight for the only open file. And at some point, if we just take the only open file and then move the knight and say, okay, you have a choice. You can trade a whole bunch of rooks, at which point your attack is over and you're a pawn down, or you can give me the only open file. That's not going to be a choice that black enjoys making. So this plan of playing rook c2 and rook hc1, I think makes a whole ton of sense. And that's why I played queen d3. But I actually believe queen d3 was the wrong square for the queen. Where should the queen go instead and why? People are getting. So Austin has a good point. Can black block the c file with knight b6, knight c4? So my thought here was, I imagined knight b6 was coming, and I thought about something like this. And my thought here was simple. I go knight d1, I overprotect b2, make sure like absolutely nothing horrible is going to happen to me, and then I go knight d2, I kick that knight out of the way, and we're good to go. That was my plan. I thought I'd bring knight d1, knight d2, open the c file, pawn up, game over, was essentially the extent of my thought process. This was wrong. I missed a key resource. Where should white put the queen instead and why? So it goes. A lot of people are always trying to play e4. E4 just feels like such a bad move to me. You don't want this bishop to wake up. As soon as you play e4, you're unable to move this knight. You're walking into g4. Like once this bishop wakes up, you have a massive problem. But there's a very serious reason that this queen should have gone to a different square than d3. Queen d3 allows e5? No, I don't think it does. White can take on d5. Okay, let's put it this way. What's the one weakness in White's position that he wants to be most worried about protecting? Yeah, it's b2. This pawn on b2 needs protection. Now, I thought I had this under control, but I didn't. So there came knight b6, rook c2, knight c4, rook h c1. And when I got to this position during the game, I really felt like I should be good to go. But then when he started thinking here, I realized there was a problem. So what I'd like you guys to do now, I mean, black is like one move away from just losing this game without a fight. Let's see if you guys can find the way to make counterplay. But think carefully, because this is not wildly easy. My whole plan was, remember, just knight d1, overprotect b2, knight d2. I think if I can pull off knight d1, knight d2, black's just going to lose. But there's a way here for black to make serious counterplay that I had underestimated. Okay, so someone's giving me rook cb8, knight d1, knight a3, but okay. And rook c, if you put a rook on b8, White's going to have to play king a1 and take one move off, but then you still need another move after that, and to figure out which rook to put on b8 and why and what happens afterwards. So Ariane has something closer to correct. Maybe Ariane, do you want to share with us? All right, let's go.
So here I played rook c to b8.
And after king a1?
The reason is because here the a rook lines up with the king.
So you want to play what move?
Rook b3.
And why do you want to play rook b3? What are you threatening?
Now possibly a3.
Right. So what we want to do is occupy this square so that a3 comes, and then white cannot play b3 in response. So if you had played a3 here after b3, White's going to win for sure. But after rook b3, we have this tremendous threat of a3. Now, this is not an issue. I had seen this. White has knight d2, which is an only move, but it's not wildly difficult. At this point, we're ready to meet a3 with knight takes b3. And once we've gotten rid of this knight, I don't believe in this attack anymore. A3, a takes b3 is fine, and the king can run. But we're starting to look in the right direction. Occupying this b3 square is useful. So Roger, you have a point you want to share with us? Okay, Austin is there. All right, I'll ask Austin. You have the exclamation points.
The king going to a1 means that the king and the rook are in forking distance. So if you play knight a5 and threaten the fork, then White has to play king b1, but then you can just play knight c4 again.
Can I not take this pawn from you? Think I can?
Wait.
What do you mean maybe? What's your next move?
Maybe queen b4.
Sure. So if I go knight c5, I think I play. My next move is a3, and you're out of steam.
Yeah, that didn't really quite work.
Okay. So what we have here is we see this idea that if we can play rook cb8, king a1, and then get knight a5 to happen, we're looking for knight b3. But it's easier said than done. We can't pull it off right away. There's knight takes a4 in the air. So we need to find an actual correct continuation with more than with a few moves in advance. What are we going to play? Keep in mind, guys, everyone's saying knight d1. I'm not going to play knight d1 unless you force me to. I mean, I can play knight, but probably my next move, if you don't do anything, is going to be knight d2, not knight d1. Okay, so Sanyana is getting closer, which is queen b4, and this way we're getting ready for knight a5. But here I think knight d1 might be a bit more feasible because now I'm actually not worried about knight a3. And here I might be ready for knight d2 next. Like, For example, if you play, maybe you can play rook cb8 here though. If you play rook ab8, I can probably go knight d2, and I don't believe in this. This is not going to work for black, but no, we want to find a way to convince white to play knight d1 so that knight a5, so that then knight a5 becomes possible. Rook cb8 is a good start. But after king a1, we need a better move than knight a5. We need to find a way to encourage white to play knight d1, and then knight a5 can come. Keep in mind, like, if you do nothing, my next move is going to be knight d2, which I don't think you want to allow. A lot of people are giving some kind of bishop f8. That's just going to allow knight e5 at some capacity. So give me like a real line, guys, not just a move. I mean, you tell me what move you make and then what white's going to play in response. All right, Austin, you want to share with us? That looks really good. So actually, it was the other Austin I meant, but no, it was that one. Okay, so it's Austin May. Let me. All right.
My idea was to play queen b7 first to force him to play knight d1. And then now we play knight a5 with the threat knight b3 with the fork.
Yeah, and here actually white can basically resign. You can't stop it. He's losing his rook on c1. The queen's a bit worse placed than b4 because white can play a3 to make room with a gain of tempo in some lines, but queen b4 would have been decent too. So here, I realized at this point, I mean, I realized when he was thinking here that I had sort of lost control and that at this point I was going to need to alter things. So back in this position, this is exactly the position I was talking about. This queen would be so much better on e2. So that makes sense to everybody now? Like, we would not have to worry about knight takes b2. We'd have a move to do whatever the heck we wanted. And I think that would have been a huge step in the right direction for white. So this is why the queen is misplaced. And in fact, queen e2 might be the best move. I played rook b1 instead. And there came knight a5, a3. Just want to skip through the next couple of moves. He played rook a5, which was not wildly intelligent, but I responded with an equally stupid move. I played knight d2, and I had calculated this line: e5 take on d2, knight c5, take dc, knight e4, c6. I take on d5 and I win. Or knight c4, I can play e4 and I win. Unfortunately for me, black has two winning moves in this position. But what is he going to do? Yeah, well spotted, Brian. Yeah, you got both of them. One of them is incredibly straightforward. Yeah, well spotted, Alex, Wang, and Eric. Yeah, everyone's like, yeah, okay. Just take this rook. This somehow missed, but even more grotesque. I mean, to be fair, I didn't actually play this. I caught myself before I did, but I missed it in my preliminary calculations when I played knight d2. Yeah, and Lyndon as well. This e4 is even more grotesque. Hit this queen and then queen b3 and mate on a3. So I realized here that I had to alter my plans. I took this one. All right, guys. Nobody likes finding only moves to survive, but that's what you all have to do here. White can resign if he doesn't find the best move. You just have to calculate and find the only move that doesn't lose immediately, and it's not easy to do, but good luck. Sorry. So Lyndon, that's a good start, but there's more than one move that does that, and you have to find what black's big threats are. Is this position equal? White might even be slightly better, but if you don't find the best move, you're definitely going to lose. So let's find the best move. Queen d2. So far, nobody has found the best move. A lot of people have pointed out moves that don't work, but that's a big difference between that and finding one that does work. You have to figure out what black's big threat is. And that's what you need to do to save the game. If you don't see black's threat, you're just going to lose. Okay, Kelsey Liu, very well spotted. You want to share with us? Let me ask you to unmute.
So black wants to play queen b3, king a1, and queen c4 because you have to move the queen. If you go to queen d2, that's possible. So you need to play queen e2.
Yeah. So my first thought here was to play queen d1 because it felt like a very natural move to keep in touch with the d5 pawn. But then I realized that this is coming, and now we have a huge problem on our hands as knight b3 is not messing around. Is this a draw after knight b3, knight c1, or is black going to do something more grotesque here? Let's use this queen a2, and trust me, this is not how you want to lose a chess game. So basically, once I realized this, that queen b3, queen c4 is a colossal threat, because like here, there's just nothing. Like knight b3 kills you next move, and there's nothing until you can do about it. Once I realized that was the case, it's not too hard to see that you must put the queen on the e2 square so that after queen b3 and king a1, you have the c4 square under control. And actually here, white might still be a little better. The best move now was rook d1. But I played knight d4, and this allowed black a fantastic resource. So let's see if you guys can figure it out. This is really difficult, but see, I believe in y'all. Give you guys a hint. The whole goal is to open that g7 bishop, and there's a very creative way of doing it here. Knight e6. That does not strike me as very creative or effective. It's similar to the game. I think black's just worse after rook d1. All right, Austin, you want to share your lines? That was a guess. Okay, Lyndon, you want to share with us? Let me ask you to unmute.
Well, so the move I was thinking was queen b3 because you're giving up a queen for a rook and a knight, but you're also opening up the bishop, king a1, pawn takes c2, queen takes c2, and feel like rook b3 just because the knight can't move, otherwise rook takes a3, and otherwise your next move is taking on c3 with the bishop.
Yeah, this is crushing, but what if white ignores you and plays king a1? You didn't have to take your queen, of course.
Well, I'm thinking the move queen c4 right now.
Trading queens?
But
nah, if you trade queens, white's good to go. Anyone's, I think someone else had this. Zoe, you have the move for us?
I've already seen this game before, but queen b6.
Okay. Yeah, queen b6 is very powerful. And the point is basically here, there's no way for white to bolster this knight sufficiently because knight b3 is a colossal threat. And there's just no way to stop this bishop from waking up, which is a huge problem. So like if you play something like rook d1, like, okay, already here, this probably just wins on knight b3 and we're taking material. So I think this knight is going to have to move. And once this bishop on g7 wakes up, that's a very big issue for white. So this is bad news. I think this queen b4, queen b7 to b3 back to b6 is incredibly effective. Austin is suggesting knight f5, but this is not going to work. Let's say we start with check and then go d4 and hit this knight, and we're ready to mate takes with like takes, and the stuff is hanging. Take the bishop, but now this is not going to work, I don't think. Knight d2 is coming. Yeah, this is gone. This knight is basically lost. Yeah, I mean, if knight f5 or knight h5, queen e6 is going to be made. Now this is gone. So, all right, guys, stay on topic in chat, please. I don't want to be your babysitters. I'm here to teach you chess. Yeah, queen b3 back to b6 was very tough. I had seen queen b3, but queen b6 is afterwards was what I had underestimated. Anyhow, in the game, Black played knight b3, which was less than brilliant, and now he's much worse. After rook a6, the best move was king a1. And the point is here that this does not give Black time to coordinate this rook, because if he plays rook c6, I have knight takes a4. And this works very nicely for white. Austin, why not knight takes d5 instead of king a1? Because this is check. So king a1 now threatens knight takes d5. And knight takes d5 is a serious enough threat that Black really has to respect it. But it's not that easy to stop, because the way he would stop it is to move this rook. But where does that rook go? Because you don't want to lose the a4 pawn. So I played king b1. My thought was actually the king was safest on c1. This was totally wrong. I should have kept it in the corner. But the problem with this was that after bishop f8 and here, was that now while bishop takes a3 is not a threat per se right now, is that this freed Black to play rook c6, which coordinates his pieces much better, because in the event of knight takes a4, now he takes on a3. So if I had started with king a1 directly, he's immediately forced to deal with this threat of knight takes d5, and at this moment he cannot play rook c6. So he's going to have to mess up his coordination somehow, and I think basically white's going to be a pawn up. The best thing I could come up with was for white is to go something like rook d3, queen d2, knight e2, and this will overprotect the d4 pawn really hard. It overprotects the a3 pawn as well. And then once that happens, ready for rook c3, we take the open file and we should be good to go. And yeah, after rook e6, queen f3 is fine, queen d3 is fine. I think white's just much better, almost no matter how you slice it. Instead, though, I played this stupid move king b1, and there came bishop f8 and rook c6. And yeah, here, because knight takes a4 doesn't work, it's not such an easy situation. So there followed rook d3. And here I realized what I had done, which was my whole plan in this position was to just say, all right, queen d2, knight e2, rook c3, and then I am good to go. But the problem that I then realized was that as soon as I touch the knight on c3, I'm going to get queen b2'd, which is not nice. So I played like, I think I played queen e3 here. I think I played queen d2 here, bishop g7, king d1. I thought maybe I could run the king to g1 to safety, but he ended up in this sort of tough spot where it's hard to move because king e1, there's bishop takes d4. But I just want to skip through the next couple moves pretty fast because it's there's a critical moment here that came. So here and then bishop f8. All right, this was first move after time control. Calculate really well, please, and find the best way. I found the right move here, but screwed it up later. Eventually it was a draw, but I don't know. You guys will see. This was with Ivanisevic, but let's find the best move here. Let's actually give some variations behind the move. All right, Lyndon, you want to share? Okay.
Okay, the move is knight takes a4. And the point is the queen on b3 is being attacked. And so Black really has two moves. He could take on, actually three moves. He could take on e3, but after f takes e3, he has nothing because c8 hangs in the case of rook takes a4. If queen takes a4, b3.
What's this move?
Yeah. And if queen takes c2, I just don't buy this. Rook takes, and
don't buy this. White needs 5 only moves in a row to win this game, and hopefully you would calculate that in advance.
Knight c3.
Nope. I think you're really worse after rook takes b2 then.
Okay.
Or at least you have to work for the draw at that point. So let's be careful. All right, guys, find the only moves here. full variations. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's like 6 only moves in a row to win this position. This is a very annoying rook on c2. Okay, so a couple people have given me this line here, here, takes, here, check, check, king f3, and white wins, yeah? That's what you guys have given me. May I suggest you look for candidate moves in this position? Yeah, rook e6 and you lose. So here you must make a draw with king back and forth in the d file. So this didn't do it. Okay, so a couple of people have given me b4, but this is not great either. You need to cut off black's rooks, and here you're not going to do it. The rook gets to c4, and the rook will stay alive. Indeed, if you're allowed to play knight c5, you're good to go. Like if black, I don't know, plays something dumb here. As soon as you have cut off one of black's rooks, the other rook on the second rank doesn't really matter that much, and you're good. But here we would do something like this, like these rooks are too annoying. You're not going to win this game. So we need a real variation. A knight c5 before b4, but black can take it. And this, I think, should be fine. You can also take b2. I mean, seems pretty reasonable. I think at this point, black is playing for advantage. I mean, there's only black can be better. But we need a real variation here that wins for white. Several only moves in a row. It's not easy, guys. I mean, like, if white doesn't find the right move here, like, it's very easy to become worse. This rook on the second rank is really problematic. Okay, so everyone wants to play knight b6. Fine, I'll give you knight b6. Now what? Next move is also important. b4, I don't think that's going to be great. If b4, like, say rook a2, I think once black doubles his rooks in the second rank, he has to be saving the game. Yeah, you're definitely not winning this position. So we need a better move here that freezes black pretty nicely. Knight d7 was close, but it's not quite right. Knight a4 back, repeating moves, that's not going to win the game either. Okay, so Sefer, you want to share with us?
I think you should just simply take on d5.
I think black is fine after rook takes b2 now.
Okay.
Somebody had a line that I liked. Oh, no, it was Sanjana. Sorry, that was the wrong one. I did the wrong one. Okay, Sanjana, you want to share with us?
So here, queen e8. Okay, so
This is a really nice move. What's so good about it?
so it's with the similar ideas with knight d7, and here I was thinking if rook c1 check, king d2, rook c2, king d3, it's difficult for black to prevent knight d7, and if king g7, then queen e5 check with knight takes d5.
Yeah, so there's a few points here. First of all, if black ever has to play rook c1 check, you're incredibly happy to get your king off the back rank. But the big point is it freezes both rooks. So this rook can't take on either f2 or b2 because the rook on c6 is hanging in response. And so here after king g7, so white's threat, like if black just does something stupid, is to play knight d7 and execute the same thing as last time, except without allowing rook takes b2. So if black could go rook takes b2 and then rook b1 check in time, it would make a draw, but here he can't. So if rook c8, like the easiest is probably to just take this bishop, and this should win pretty routinely. The two pawns will win the game. But so here the best move for black is king g7, and then I'd calculated knight d7, threatening this bishop and also threatening knight c5, which will win one of black's rooks. So here black's out of options and has to push the king all the way to d3. But now that the king is off the back rank, we're good. And after bishop d6, I had seen the last only move, queen e3, which freezes black's rooks again. And now we're finally ready to start pushing pawns and white should win. It's important not to blunder with queen d8 because then there's rook takes f2. But yeah, this was pretty good calculation. Unfortunately, the rest of the game I did not calculate as well. So people were asking. So after a long thought, my opponent took here, take, check. And then a bunch of people who had seen this game were asking me why I played c takes d5 here. So basically you can go rook d1. Thor, be quiet. Sorry, dog is being loud. Yeah, so basically I saw a position like this one, and I thought it was going to be pretty annoying to win this. Like black's going to play c3 and stick this pawn here, and I can't get rid of it very easily, and I can't get my rook on c2 active, but eventually an exchange is an exchange and it should count. So I thought if I can get away with taking on d5, I should do it. And I calculated this line: takes, check, queen d3, check, king d1, check, here, check here, queen a6, queen c6. And after queen f1, king c2, finally black is out of checks and I'm good to go, and I managed to grab that pawn. So that was the line, a long line I had calculated, but you always have to slow down, make sure you don't miss things early on. Because here, once this position after rook e8 check was on the board, I realized that queen takes d3 is a small improvement for black. That's not a good way to lose a chess game. So I basically here, I'm almost out of options. I had to play king f3. I just missed, I somehow missed it after king d1 and made it after queen takes d3. And so here, black played queen f6 check and bishop takes d2 and rook e1. And at this point, black has enough counterplay to save the game. I wasn't able to generate any serious winning chances like after f4, I mean, which I sort of had to do. Take an h5 check and queen h4, and like my king is too open. He had too much counterplay, and here he was able to save the game. So yeah, that's how I blundered it away. I just somehow missed that in this position, king d1, he can take my queen. That was a bummer. Anyhow, eventually I ended in a draw, but there were a lot of really interesting moments. So yeah, that'll do it for today. Good job, everybody. I will see you all next month.